So it's a new year, and if you're anything like me, a lot of times when it comes to my purchasing habits with fragrances, I'll often take mental note of things here and there that I want to pick up. I'll just kind of store that in the back of my head. And then at some point, some random time throughout the year, that'll end up falling into one of my shopping carts on one of the big discounters, FragranceNet, Fragrance Buy, whatever. And ultimately, I end up buying it. However, oftentimes I go back and forth on things. I've talked about that before here on the channel, where something will end up in my cart, and at the very last minute I change my mind, I throw in something else, and ultimately sometimes it can be months before I end up picking up something that I really want. And I've gone over that before on the channel, and I've said, look, I've been back and forth on this so many times, finally got it, and I wish I would have gotten it sooner. And so maybe you guys are the same way, you know, you kind of go back and forth and change your mind on certain things. But what I want to do today is I want to offer you 10 fragrances that, in my opinion, are worth saving up your money for. So these would be ones that you could just kind of have on the back burner, you know, set them aside, and then when the time is right and you have a little bit of spending money to indulge in something like this, you can go ahead and pick some of these up. Now, because of that, some will be a little bit more expensive than others, but for the most part, I still tried to keep this video very affordable, so you could start socking some money away and you can make some great additions to your collection here in 2023. These are all purchases that I'm really happy with. They're ones that some I kind of waited on a little bit. It was kind of back and forth on them, and once I got them in, I realized how good they were, and again, I wish I would have gotten them sooner, and so maybe I can spare that for you guys and help you make a decision on adding some great things to your collection. So I will link these down below for you. Like always, I'm posting deals on my community tab every day. A whole bunch of rare stuff comes into stock and I post about it. I also have a mailing list you can sign up for so you don't miss out on any of those deals as well. Let's get things kicked off with Narciso Rodriguez Bleu Noir. This is the new Parfum. So this has iris, okay, which is really a big selling point for me. That's what got me excited about this. But it also does have your typical fixings for Narciso Rodriguez Bleu Noir, mainly being the musk, some vetiver, and that sort of thing. Just some other woods as well, some cedar wood. But ultimately, it's got that woody, masculine, kind of fresh base, but then mixed with a sweeter, dustier, powdery iris accord. So it's a different approach on a fresh iris, because the iris here is actually sweet, but it's combined with fresh notes overall. So kind of like a flip-flop inverse of Prodalome, essentially, where that's using a fresh iris. And this one can kind of be compared a little bit to something like DIOR Homme Intense, Valentino Uomo Intense, or whatever it may be, but ultimately this is going to be much more wearable and even mass-pleasing and fresher than all of those other sweet iris scents. This is a great one that you should definitely consider if you do like iris. Next up, we have Jean Paul Gaultier Le Male Parfum. So now this one has cardamom. There is some iris in here as well, some lavender. Now, the iris isn't as pronounced in this as some of the others that we'll talk about today, but ultimately you still do get it. For me, it's all about that lavender, vanilla, cardamom concoction. And so the way I've described it is it kind of takes the sweetness of Ultra Male and then the kind of aromatic, fresh lavender approach of the original, combines them, but then adds in a nice, warm, spicy cardamom to really, for lack of a better term, spice it up. I think this is an amazing flanker. If Ultra Male was just too much for you, I think this hits a really nice middle ground for a lot of people, and it's a great flanker with a great performance. I recommend this one highly for the cool months. Now, this next one's a little bit more expensive, hence why the video is kind of structured around just taking your time, saving up your money. But ultimately, I do think it is a really good investment, like everything else in the video, and that is the newer DIOR SAUVAGE ELIXIR. Now available in 100 ml bottles. This is not a 100 ml. This is I think it's 60 or something like that. I can never really remember the bottle size, and then I look like an idiot on camera because I can't even read what it says on the bottom. 60 ml. I should just go with my gut. That's what I thought. And the reason why I struggle with that is because it's 60 milliliters and the retail is like 160, 165. It's a lot of money. Now, if you get lucky and you can find it on discounters, you can get it down to 140, maybe sometimes a 130, but that's still a lot of money for 60 milliliters. The 100 ml is retailing for a little bit over 200. So again, this is not something that a lot of people are just going to go impulse buy. This would be the type of thing that you would be best off maybe sampling first, walking into a department store, smelling it, whatever. Or if you just have a ton of trust in the brand and the Sauvage line, you can go in for a blind buy. I do want to describe it really briefly though, even though it's been talked about to death already. It's got sandalwood, licorice, lavender, also nutmeg and cinnamon. So a ton of spicy notes, a ton of warm notes. It's warm and spicy and woody, very traditional, very masculine. Not really at all like the original Sauvage or any of its counterparts. So a little bit of an interesting one here. If you want the most mature version of Sauvage possible, and you also want just a completely ridiculous performer, get this one at some point. Moving up next, we have La Nuit de l'Homme Le Parfum. So this one's a little bit slept on. I've had it for a while. I've talked about it before, and I've always really enjoyed it ever since I first got it in. Now, this one has fruity notes, and in replacement of the cardamom of the original, they have a black pepper accord in here. You also get some lavender, which is pretty standard, and even some vanilla. So it's kind of backwards. You know, you think Le Parfum, you see the bottle, which is kind of this black opaque look to it, and you think, okay, this is going to be even heavier and even richer than La Nuit de l'Homme. Awesome. Not quite. This is actually a little bit more fruity. It's a little bit more fresh in some ways, but still maintains that sweetness. Just a different take, but maybe not what you would expect. That being said, I really do like it, and I think it brings something new to the table in the sense of being more wearable. You know, La Nuit de l'Homme, the Eau de Toilette, to me is more of an evening scent and date night scent. This one I think could be worn during the day on a more appropriate regular basis for work and school and that sort of thing, and it won't be as seductive smelling. Okay, moving over to Tom Ford, another one that's a little bit pricey, but worth it in my opinion. It's Gray Vetiver. So besides the obvious here, it also has grapefruit, oak moss, and some woody notes going on in here. Now the vetiver in here is of the soapy, clean, and fresh variety. So in other words, very mass pleasing, very easy to pull off. The oak moss is kind of giving it that masculine smell. You're getting some aromatics and kind of a green feel out of it. Some other nice light woods in the dry down, but it's all about the main note that is in the title of the scent, as you could probably imagine. This is another great one for work, for school, for just anything. I mean, there is not a single situation that you couldn't wear this to. Now, it's best suited for your general daytime activities and maybe a little bit more formal. You're not going to be your number one choice for a date night scent, but it would work in theory. So, you know, you're going to get a lot of versatility out of this one. It's worth the investment up front. It's got great quality. The performance is also good for what it is. And it's a really, really nice classic vetiver that I think almost every guy should have. Moving along, Parfums de Marly Greenley. So I think a lot of Parfums de Marly fragrances are worth picking up at some point, kind of easing yourself into them, because this can be a brand that gets out of control in terms of you just get hooked, right? You start out with something like Leighton and then you jump in and then you've got 3 or 4 more within a week. You can go crazy on these. Ask me how I know. However, Greenley is a great place to start, especially kind of when you start thinking about springtime, which is coming up. Okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. Still got a good solid few months here, but you know, you can't knock me for trying. You know, it's getting closer. And I think this is a great one for that season coming up. It has a green apple accord, bergamot, oak moss, cashmerean. There's some musk and some other woods in here. So very green, very aromatic. Fresh, clean, super wearable, great performance as well. I mean, this is a strong one, a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be. And ultimately, when it comes to having a niche scent that kind of does something a little bit different, but still maintains mass appeal and wearability, this is a great one to put your money into. Moving along, we have DIOR Homme Original. So if you can ever get your hands on this one, I recommend you do so. And fact of the matter is, if you end up not liking it for whatever reason, you could probably sell it and get your money back, because this stuff is relatively sought after and a lot of people are trying to get it, although it isn't always in stock. Now, this one has iris, as you could probably imagine, with some leather, a little bit of cacao, lavender, that sort of thing. If you smell DIOR Homme Intense, good for you. That's awesome. It's one of the best out there. Now imagine DIOR Homme Intense, but simply a little bit lighter and fresher. You know, it doesn't have quite as much of that chocolatey, dense, rich, sweet smell. That's this. DIOR Homme Intense, great nighttime scent, evening out, whatever. DIOR Homme Original, great for the office or work or school during the daytime. Still very classy, a gentleman's scent, and definitely worth picking up if you can get it. This will be our last niche fragrance here. However, it's pretty much designer priced, and actually it's going to be more affordable than a good bulk majority of some of the designers in here, which is pretty crazy. MANCERA Red Tobacco. So this one is definitely worth picking up at some point if you're after a super strong tobacco scent. With that, you also get a little bit of oud, a little bit of patchouli, that sort of thing. The oud isn't too strong, although you do pick up on it. And it is a little bit medicinal at times, in kind of typical MANCERA fashion. A lot of their ouds come across that way, so it's nothing new. If you're a fan of MANCERA and you've smelled a lot of their fragrances, chances are you'll pick out that note in here. It definitely has a MANCERA smell to it, as you could probably expect. But ultimately, it's all about the tobacco, nice red pipe tobacco, and again, this is incredibly strong. If you are not the biggest fan of beast mode fragrances, then you're not going to want to get this one, because this could be overwhelming to some people. Like, seriously, you got to be okay with having attention on you and having people potentially approach you and say, hey, what are you wearing? Because that smells great, or it smells strong, or maybe they hate it. The point is, I mean, this stuff, it doesn't hold back, so you got to be prepared for that. But for the price to value to performance ratio, it's one of the best. BVLGARI Man in Black is another one that I think is worth investing in at some point, because the way I like to describe it is it's a more mature and boozy spice bomb, eau de toilette. So you do get the tobacco and the spices in here, but with a rum accord. Sweetens it up a little bit more. It knocks back some of the abrasive spiciness that spice bomb has, and in return, again, gives you a little bit of a warm, kind of almost sultry, boozy rum quality. It's delicious. I think this was really, really nice. It's one of those addicting ones too. You get a whiff of this for the first time and you're going to be hooked. On discounters, it's usually going to be in the, I don't know, $90 range. A little bit more expensive, but it's got great performance and it's worth it to have around. Now, this last one can also be a little bit hard to get sometimes, but again, it's worth kind of being on the lookout for. And if you're subscribed to the channel and you're subscribed to my mailing list, as soon as this comes in stock anywhere, I post about it. In fact, it came in stock the other day. It was like 100 mil, $82. I sent an email out. I made a post on my community tab. Sold out within probably a half hour. So you got to be quick, but it pays to be subscribed and subscribe to the mailing list as well. But it's the one Luminous Night, so very sought after, definitely caught a lot of hype, and due to it being an exclusive edition, it's just a little bit hard to get. Now it has amber, incense, and sandalwood in here. Smoky, resinous, sweet, creamy, and amazing. This is probably the most interesting, but still likable, the one exclusive edition. Mysterious Night is a really good one as well, but it's a rose oud combo and not everyone's cup of tea. Royal Night is great as well, but still very similar to the original. I think this one, dollar for dollar, is going to offer you the most uniqueness, but still wearability, and it also has great performance. Definitely worth being on the lookout for. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for me. 10 fragrances worth saving up for in 2023. All amazing scents that I like a lot, and I wear these a good amount as well, and I recommend them highly. Links will be down below. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.